Welcome to Not So Final Fantasy, a special edition.
Oh my.
A very special edition. Today, we are not going to be playing any of our games. We're not going to be continuing with, I think we're on Final Fantasy VI right now.
Yes.
And we are
continuing with it, just not today.
We are continuing, we're just not going to do it today. Today, we're going to be talking about Final Fantasy XIV.
Woo!
Shadowbringers. Don't do too much or they'll copyright strike us.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
Even humming, singing, thinking about it. Oh, there goes our money. All the money that we were hoping to make.
Oh, yes, all the money, because we're monetized.
Oh, yeah, I'm just rolling in
with our hundreds of viewers.
This is going to be a spoiler cast of Shadowbringers.
Ooh.
Specifically from 5.0 until 5.3.
Yay.
Which is all that is out right now. The patch 5.3 just recently came out. Both Hallie and I have played through it.
Yay!
And that has wrapped up the main story, I would say, for Shadowbringers. There is still going to be a little bit more. Obviously, have to finish off the Nier raid. Have to finish off the Eden raid.
Yeah, the Eden stuff, which is going to be interesting based on some things that we'll talk about later.
And I'm sure, the MSQ will continue, but most of that is going to be leading into whatever
6.0.
Potentially going to be 6.0. Mm-hmm. I think both you and I are pretty sure we know what it's going to be, but we'll get into that here
If it's not that, I think people will riot. They've been wanting it to be this for a while.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, I'm still relatively new to the game, but it seems like for a while, everyone's thinking, well, it's obviously this. The next expansion is obviously going to be this. And every time it hasn't been. So I wouldn't count it for certain.
I mean, it's true. But I mean, with everything they've been doing, I'd be a little surprised.
I would be very surprised too.
I guess I know where else they could go because they've mentioned
some other places. But we'll get into that here in just a second. To begin with, I think we can start off with some non-spoiler talk about what we thought of Shadowbringers overall, from a gameplay perspective, from changes away from Stormblood, and just overall the mechanical part of the game. So let's start off with that. What did you think of Shadowbringers versus Stormblood?
Just gameplay-wise?
Let's just go with gameplay, or maybe not even just Stormblood, but as a progression. I know you mostly started with Stormblood, but
when I started, it was still technically the end of Heaven's Ward. So we were getting to the point where you were about to go fight the White Griffin, and he releases fucking Shinryu, and
all of that stuff happens.
It's bad. So that's where I was when I very first started. They were in Heaven's Ward, and they were finishing up the last patch of Heaven's Ward when I came in. So I don't have much context for how it played in A Realm Reborn or how it played in Heaven's Ward, because a lot of people are like, oh, when this class was ass during this time, and I'm like, I never played it, so I don't know.
I've heard word about bards used to be people call them bow mages.
Well, they were. You casted, so you had to stand still.
Yeah.
And their limit break was a raise.
Ah.
It was the healer. It was
How
the healer
weird.
limit break. Yeah, it was very weird. People thought it was very strange. So when they didn't have to cast anymore, they were like, yay! And then other things I think they didn't like. I don't know. It's tough to comment on because I've bounced around a few times. I started as a monk. Well, pugilist. I got to 30, unlocked monk, and then ran like a son of a bitch to rogue, because back when I started, you could not play rogue until you got pugilist to 30.
How weird.
You couldn't unlock it or play it.
I've heard weird things about that. There was more interaction between classes.
It was, you used to, you could cross-class certain, some of the, the stupid, God, what is it? Not blood for blood. I never use it. You can see I don't play DPS anymore.
That's the thing that makes it so when you hit them, you heal a little bit, right?
That used to be exclusively, I think, a monk thing. And so if you could cross class it though, and you had I think 3 or 4 ones. You could get one at 15, I think one at 30, one at 45, one at 50, and then I think again at 60 once you were,
Sure. So there was benefit to doing multiple classes.
Yes,
because
and you kind of needed it because I think like for healers you needed cleric stance, but cleric stance only came with white mage, so you had to make sure that you got white mage up to a certain point so that you could get cleric stance, and so there was a lot more kind of complex bullshittery. In my opinion, it was bullshittery. In other people's opinion, they enjoyed that.
I think the devs agreed because...
Oh, yeah, because it's gone.
Yeah, I mean, they've changed it so
I think they wanted to
significantly.
make it more straightforward for kind of everybody to be able to play. They seem very focused on trying to make it a game that everyone can enjoy. Which I think is smart because then...
Certainly.
It's very much not... I don't feel like you have to struggle to play it.
Yeah.
It's not laughably easy, but...
It's that ever so tantalizing, easy to learn, tough to master.
Yeah.
So I'm basically one generation behind you because I started at the tail end of Stormblood.
Yeah.
Probably right around the time of Tsukiyomi.
I think so, something like that. You got through it pretty quick.
Oh yeah, I mean, I started off right around Christmas time when I had some extra time. And it was 2.0 was 2.0 to 3.0 was a slog.
Yeah.
But, got through it. And even from there was some significant changes. Because we lost TP.
Yeah.
And...
Well, I mean, TP we only lost in Shadowbringers.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
TP all through...
That's what I'm saying. Well, okay, you know a bit of it more than me, but I had it for a hot minute inside of...
You want to know something really fun? Sprint used to cost TP.
I think I remember that.
You weren't there for it.
Was I not?
No, it went away. It went away not super quick, but I think it went away with Stormblood. It would wipe out all of your TP to sprint, and then you had to wait till it built back up.
Oh man,
to be able to sprint again.
I think about some of the dungeons I've been in where I've just like had to pop sprint to get out of some AoE's way. I'd have been fucked.
Yeah.
But I started off probably like a lot of people just DPS. I don't want to deal with tanking bullshit. It's too fucking... I don't want the responsibility. So, of course, long queue times and basically just being like, I'm replaceable as anything. But eventually, in the transition from Stormblood to Shadowbringers, I discovered I love tanking.
It's fun.
And...
It's a lot of responsibility, but it is fun.
Really, it's not
that much. To be fair,
much.
though, I do think DPS has a lot of responsibility, but I won't get into that now.
Oh, I mean, that's the thing. DPS, you got to be on, man.
Yeah, you really do, if you want to do a good job.
It's a weird dichotomy to where you're replaceable, but you still got to fucking be really good at it.
Especially if you want to do any of the higher end shit. Like, part of the reason I stopped being DPS is because I'm like, that's too much work. I just keep you alive. You do the hard stuff.
So it's funny, the two classes that I play generally got the most changes because I play Dark Knight, and I know that was not in a good place, or excuse me, some people believe it was not in a good place inside Stormblood. Other people believe it was just you had to be just good at it. If you knew how to play it, you were pretty good off. But I never really even bothered with it. I did the story quest, and I was like, okay, I'm not going to fuck with that.
I mean, and you always thought it was cool, but... And I mean, your character used to be called Red Knight, so you kind of wanted Dark Knight.
Yeah, Red, Dark Knight. Yeah. But I never fucked with it. Once you got to Shadowbringers, it got a full rehaul, and it's great to play now. And I've actually ventured to say it's one of the easiest tanks to play.
I would say with Blackest Night, it's one of the better ones, yeah. Because Blackest Night's definitely one of the best mitigations.
Living Dead, obviously, not the best super skill. Obviously, Paladin's got the better of that one.
Yeah, well, Hallowed Ground is...
Except it's got a long-ass cooldown.
It does, but it's literally, haha, you can't touch me.
Yeah.
So, I mean... I would say the next one that's as good would definitely be the Warriors, because you just can't be reduced below 1 while it's on.
Sure.
Then I would say Gunbreaker, and then I would say Poor Dark Knight, because Living Dead is just painful.
Well, you know, Gunbreaker is a DPS class masquerading as a tank class.
Yeah.
I love Gunbreaker. I think it's really fun to play, but I feel bad for my healers.
I will say, I am sorry to anyone who plays Gunbreaker and really likes it and is maybe good. I've pretty much hated every Gunbreaker I've ever come across. But it's new. It's the new... Everybody wants to play the new one. Or if they've never tanked before, or like they boost so that they can get to the new... Because they want to be Squall. And then they suck at it.
God help us if they ever... I mean, okay. The good thing is they'll never actually put a Cloud class in there because the Dark Knight is essentially... Because you get the big-ass sword. But that's kind of a gameplay. Just to go back onto something else that I was talking about, I also play Machinist, which is pretty fucking fun. You have to constantly be like playing the keyboard like a fucking piano. But it's pretty fun to play. DPS-wise. I'm not great. Let me put something out there right now. I am casual as the fucking day is long. This one right here, she's pretty, I wouldn't say hardcore, but she's much better than me at this. I
want to Savage Raid, but I don't want a static. Because I don't...
You've had bad experiences with statics.
It's not bad. The one group that I ran with wasn't terrible. But I just want to do the fights. Yeah. I do want to clear. But I don't care about having purple parses. I don't care about having big dick DPS. I don't care. I don't care. If we clear the fight...
Did you die?
I was going to say, exactly, did you die? And yes, you die. Who gives a shit? Did we clear? Did we clear? Did it end? Did we get the thing at the end of it? Good. I don't need to be the bestest big boy. Here's my giant DPS dick and let me slap it on the table for you. No, I'm sorry. I don't need it. Do I enjoy doing a good job? Sure. But I just want to experience the fights. I'm one of those insane fucking people that likes getting my head smashed against the floor. I stand up and go, let's go again. Let's go again.
There is a few of those inside Shadowbringers.
I like the fights. So I tried the static thing, but I don't have the energy for, hey, we're going to meet twice a week for 6 hours and smash our faces against this at this specific time.
Yeah.
No, especially when so many people need to do it on the weekend. And then I'm like, well, but I want to have a life on the weekend. And they're like, this is your life on the weekend. And I'm like, well,
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
So it doesn't go well.
I understand. I have no interest in any of that. I'm like, if I can get through the normal one, I'm fucking golden. Like, there's some fights inside this one that I'm like, shit, man, I wouldn't want to see the extreme.
They're fun, though.
I know. And maybe one of these days I'll let you drag me through it.
You're fine.
I'll be a dragoon and I'll tank the floor. I'll keep that floor down. Let's talk about some of the new classes. Gunbreaker, we already kind of touched on. I think it's a fun class. Mm-hmm. I think it's fun to play. It's got a great, very easy to, I wouldn't say completely easy to understand, but it is really fun to do their rotation with continuation.
Yeah, it seems like it is.
It's pretty cool. I really enjoy it.
It was fun. I've leveled everything, so.
Not Brutal Shell. Brutal Shell's the part that kind of gives you a shield. What's the thing where you fucking cap yourself?
Oh, it does start with a B.
Somebody's screaming it right now.
Yeah, my brain.
It's your big tank move. You basically take and you.
You know what's sad is that
yourself.
One of the guys that I play with the majority of plays Gunbreaker, and always we make a joke where I just am like, I don't have any, I don't have any insta heals, so can you go ahead and shoot yourself in the head for me for a second? So he's probably sitting there like, you motherfucker. So.
Yeah,
Super Belied.
Super Belied. There you go. Cool. That's your persona.
Yeah.
That's your big move, and I think it's fun. I think all their stuff looks cool because it's basically you exploding all over the battlefield.
Yeah.
But it feels like a DPS class, and I think you get a lot of people that are just like, I want to play blue DPS. I don't really want to have to tank. You don't pay my sub.
Well, interestingly enough, something that I was noticing people talking about in another Discord that I'm in was that really, or maybe it was on Reddit, I don't remember. And I don't 100% agree with it, but really every class is kind of a DPS just with special,
Yes.
like, hats.
You should be DPSing.
Every single class should DPS.
Mm-hmm.
Every single class should DPS.
Sure.
There's never a point at which you should be standing there, not pressing buttons.
Yep.
Which I know one of our friends said. Another one of our friends is the type of healer who's like, I only heal.
Not in this game.
And it's like, no, no.
You're not doing it right. Let's talk about the other class that got introduced inside Shadowbringers.
Dancer.
Probably one of the funnest classes, but a little bit obnoxious when it comes to RNG.
How do you mean?
Okay, the procs. It's entirely proc dependent. Like,
Not really.
I found it to be. Like, you never know when your fans are going to go off. Am I just not playing it right?
It's not that you're doing something wrong. It's extremely based on how you line it up. So I don't think I do it quote unquote right, as in whatever the meta is. And I'm sure when I describe the way in which I do it, there will be somebody, if someone ever listens to this, who's like, you dumb whore, you don't play Dancer right, how dare you? Because people get very, very,
Sure.
upset about their meta. But at the beginning of, if it's something that I can do it of, generally at a dungeon, standard step straight away. And then when it gets, you go in and then you standard step again. And you use the flourish. Once the flourish gets down to about 32 seconds, your standard step is on off cooldown again, and you standard step again. And so then they're ticking together at the exact same amount of time. But it's actually standard step, technical step, and then flourish. And you also use devilment at the same time as technical step ends, so that you're boosting your other DPS and flourishing, and then you're doing the flourishes. And while you're doing the flourishes, you should have built up enough Esperate to do Saber Dance, and then you're going to have fan things coming out the wazoo, so you need to bounce them back and forth. It's very dependent on your timing.
I smell burning. My brain hurt.
It's fun. I have a hard time seeing how people do it in the really hard content. I would never do the Savages or the Extremes in it. I did the new Nier raid with it once, and it wasn't so bad, but there are certain mechanics in that one that are very, if you're not paying attention good, you die. And again, this is probably somebody going, you dumb asshole, you're not supposed to play it like that. When I play Dancer, everything else that happens around me, I have to see in my peripheral because I'm watching my bars.
Yeah, it seemed like you're kind of having to watch it constantly.
It is very much because I have to watch the timers. I know some people are really good at just counting down.
Ticking in their head, I guess.
Because especially for other classes, like I know Monk, you basically have to know the server tick to get... Lord. It's complicated. I've got a couple of dudes that I play with who like main Monk. And it's very, I think there used to be a way in which knowing when the server tick was easier. We'll put it that way. And you used to basically have to have that if you wanted to do Monk optimally.
Good Lord.
So it depends on your definition of optimally. Again, I just like doing the fights. I don't care about being the bestest in the whole wide world.
See, that's the thing. The only thing that I usually try to look at when I'm doing a fight is, where am I on the aggro list?
That's somewhat accurate, somewhat inaccurate.
I know. But I look at it, I go like, am I like 3 to 5 out of 8 people? All right, I'm not completely sucking.
I think that's fine. I mean, for the most part, as long as you're not dead and you're trying to contribute, you're doing fine.
I imagine as long as I'm not eating fucking, what are those debuffs?
The vulnerability.
Yeah, as long as I don't have like fucking 16 vuln stacks, then I think I'm all right.
Yeah. Yeah, my genuine thing is like, as long as there's not too many people. I can't pay enough attention to what you are and aren't doing to know if you're doing a bad job, generally.
Yeah. Are you not dead? You're fine.
Yeah, pretty much. Have I had to raise you 16 times in this
I
one fight?
hate
I hate you. I hate you. Which is how pretty much my attitude for almost every single person in the new Nier raid. I fucking hate you.
Oh, we'll get to that.
It's not. It's. I see why when you're new, it's confusing. Because a lot of it is very. I'll say this. It feels like Yoko Taro put a hand on Yoshi P's shoulder and went, "This is not bullet hell." And he went, "But it's an MMO." And he went, "But we need more bullet hell."
More bullets, please.
So, I get it. And it's definitely harder than the last one.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. I actually haven't done it yet, but I completed the lead-up quest this afternoon.
Oh my.
So, it has it unlocked, and maybe we'll get to it.
Yeah.
But let's move on to some other changes. Ones you'll probably know a little bit more about, and ones I would say that some people are not thrilled about. And that would be healers. I would say white mages are pretty happy. Everybody else is not.
I think Scholar is okay. The biggest problem was at the very beginning. I think Scholar and Astro had a very big problem getting their mana back. Mm-hmm. Mainly Astro.
They just changed that, didn't they?
They've changed it a couple of times. I used to really love Astro. I mained Astro for a long time. I went Pugilist / Monk, Ninja, Bard, Astrologian, White Mage. And I loved Astrologian, and I was excited to see how they would hopefully make it, better, more interesting, whatever, because nothing felt better to me than, like, in one of the extreme fights, Byakko, there's a point where, like, they attack you with this big, huge hit, and then toss you up in the air, and you have to do the, like, dodging bullets thing.
Yeah.
And I had it down because I knew in my head how much time it was going to take, so I could lay down the Earthly Star at exactly the right moment, and just as it would switch into you're watching the cutscene of him throwing you in the air, the Earthly Star would explode, and we'd get healed all the way back up to full health.
That's pretty cool.
And nothing felt better, because I was like, So, because otherwise you're trying to, like, get health back while you're dodging bullets and shit. But it's just so much work now.
Yeah.
The divination, the cards, and unfortunately, I know they were trying to make the cards easier, but I think a lot of people...
boring.
Well, they're boring, and I got so used to them the other way that trying to remember that this is a ranged one and this is a melee one and this one does this thing, I have a hard time keeping it in my head now.
Here's the thing. I actually think the Astro kind of a cool aesthetic, like the card kind of thing. It's time to duel kind of shit. I think it's cool.
Yeah.
But the thing that completely destroyed any interest was when I was setting up my hotbars and I hovered over one of the skills and a fucking novel popped up as their tooltip. I'm going, what in the fuck is this one? How am I supposed to
remember what the...
No. It was just this huge, long tooltip about...
I'm guessing it had something to do with the cards.
It was something about that. The other thing is, I can't... Look, I understand. The idea is you're supposed to be active. Man, those cards don't last long. The little buff things.
No, but it used to be because you could be drawing them constantly, and you could sleeve draw constantly. That's another thing that a lot of people are like, what the fuck? Sleeve draw, I think, now has a 180-second cooldown.
Didn't they also give it like a thing where it buffed your mana regeneration or some shit?
Maybe, I don't know. But you used to be able to draw cards a lot more. Oh no, I think sleeve draw, I don't think it buffs your mana. I think it gives you the seal you don't have, or a seal that you don't have. So, you have to get those 3 different seals to be able to do divination. And if you have 3 different kinds, then you have a stronger divination than if you have 3 of the same or 2 of the same or whatever. So I think it gives you one that you don't have. It like guarantees you one you don't have or something like that. I could be wrong. But to only be able to do it every 180 seconds sucks.
Yeah.
It sucks. I used to be able to pull cards out of my ass every, 30 seconds. And Lord and Lady
See, I know. I know.
Lord
Healing,
used to
man.
do. Lord just used to be damage. Here you go, damage.
Yeah.
Lady was, I think, healing. I think Lady was a healing card.
See, to my understanding, and I might be wrong. To my understanding, tanks got relatively normalized inside Shadowbringers to where they're kind of all the same, except for a few minor differences.
It's mostly aesthetics.
Yeah.
The healers are the same way, though.
But you have to admit that White Mage is infinitely easier than any of them.
I find it that way. Some people, I think it depends on how your brain works. I would say that healers probably aren't exactly normalized. People like to say they are because it's very, you have one direct, attack, one dot, one AoE, and then your heals.
None of them can holy spam like White Mages can.
Well, no. Art of War is pretty slap the shit out of the ground on Scholar. But
does it have a stun?
I don't remember. I don't know. But the stun isn't always great because
I know.
You can sometimes over-stun them, and then they're immune to stun, and then when you need to stun them, you're fucked.
Agreed.
Which also, there used to be a thing where Dark Knights really hated Holy, but I don't think that's a thing anymore.
I have
don't
no
know
idea
what it is.
I don't dislike Holy. I'm a Dark Knight.
I think it used to be something about the stun fucked up something where they needed to be able to... I don't know. I don't remember. But the difference in the healers comes in the type of healing that they do. Scholar is mitigative healing. It blocks damage. So it's preventative. White Mage is... It's already happened, and I have to fix what's
You have a lot of
happened.
insta-heals, right?
Yes. An ungodly amount. And then Astro was supposed to sort of try to bridge the gap between the two so that it could play well with either. You could go into Diurnal Sect and do regenerative healing, or you could go into Nocturnal Sect and do mitigative healing. But it's had a really hard time balancing because, and I think it's better now, but it used to be that Scholar was, at least I think it was, I could be wrong. Scholar was always going to be a better shield healer, and White Mage was always going to be a better regenerative healer.
Yeah.
As I understand it, and from what I've read and seen, Astro is very much in a similar place that Dark Knight was. You can be fucking amazing at it.
But you have to be really good.
I say, but you have to be fucking amazing at it. I watched a Astrologian solo heal T. The ultimate Alexander.
Never done that one.
Yeah, neither have I. And I probably never will because it is ungodly difficult. And they did it all by themselves. And they even died once. Which means that their summoner or red mage or whatever raised them and they just immediately got right back into it. I think they were Japanese.
Or just crazy.
Yeah, maybe. But it can be amazing. You just really have to be good at it. And I don't have the energy to do all of that.
Let's round out our gameplay talk before we go into some spoilers with just an overall impression of the DPS classes. I know we kind of talked about Dancer a little bit, but there's some of our melee DPS, the mages, and the other ranged DPS. I've never played Ninja very much because it always just seemed a little bit intimidating. I'm very much enjoying the little bit of Summoner that I've played. Dragoon, I actually have gotten more into because I stopped overthinking it. I probably didn't realize that it was as simple as it was.
Yeah.
Samurai is a little bit complicated. I played Samurai for quite a while, actually, but it can be a little bit... The rotation's just a little bit... I don't know, my
Keeping
brain...
it in your head because it's like three separate, like you do this one, and then you do this one to get this seal, and then you do this one to get... It's like, what?
Red Mage, I very much enjoy, but it's probably one of the easiest DPS in the world.
It's definitely the one I would recommend to beginners.
Black Mage, I could never get into because...
Black Mage is complicated because your entire way you play changes every... So
That's what I've heard.
At 30, the entire way you play changes. At 50, the entire way you play. Every single time, it's like, okay, now it changes. And it's good from what I hear, but it's very hard to keep up with. I used to sort of know how to play it back when I was leveling it. I have no idea now.
And everything that I've heard, it's like you could do that, or you could just play Red Mage, and really, it's not that much different.
I mean, for the average everyday person who just wants to play the game to play the game, no, there's no.
Also, when it comes to mobility, you can't. The Red Mage is a shitload more mobile.
Yeah.
Because ley lines.
Yeah.
Talking about range DPS. Like I said, I played Machinist or Machinist. I really don't know how you say it. But we talk about Dancer, and then Bard.
I tried Bard.
I've never really done that much with it.
I
think I got it to like
Bard
50
for
something.
a little bit. I used to run Extreme Trials on Bard. It's mostly the same, I guess. They removed some of the like things that you had to keep sitting there spamming. I don't know. Ever since I moved to healer, I've kind of lost my brain for DPS, except for Dancer, because Dancer is press the shiny button.
Yeah.
And that's about it. So, I mean,
from what I've seen, Bard, it's a lot of procs too now. And
Bard, I would say, is relatively more it's not really RNG, as I understand the Refligent procs a lot more often than it used to.
I'll get back into it at one point, but I just enjoy tanks more right now.
It's fine. I don't know. I don't dislike DPS. They're fun to sit there and level just as something to do. I definitely wouldn't ever... There's not one that I want to really play, besides Dancer. But Dancer's not hard.
I like my Machinist, and Red Mage is pretty cool too.
I leveled Machinist. I don't think I ever play any of those right. I just level them to have them leveled.
Sure.
I play them passively. I don't cause problems.
Sure.
But do I do an amazing job? Probably not.
Well, just as a final kind of like wrap up, I played the other tanks. I have a max level Dark Knight and Gunbreaker. I'm almost max level with my Paladin, and Warrior will be next. There's really not.
Is 80, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I've got other 80s. I've got the Red Mage is 80, Machinist is 80, Samurai is 80, White Mage is 80, but that one's fake. I leveled that entirely through MSQ roulette because I just wanted to. Well, there are some things that you want to have a max level White Mage for inside Shadowbringers.
Class quest.
Yeah. So, mostly enjoy the tanks because to me it's mostly easy to just let everything beat the shit out of you and you are fine with that.
I started healer because that was what the group I was playing with at the time needed. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, I wasn't necessarily... Once I started doing it, I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of good at this.
Same with me and tanking.
Let's keep going. And so now I do that. I do that thing. And I definitely am, I think, better at healing than I was at DPS.
Definitely the same with tanking for me. As long as you kind of know where to position the boss and you know the mechanics of what they're going to do, it's hard to fuck up.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who... There's definitely a thought in the gameplay that you should focus really highly on your DPS, like with your builds and things. But my general opinion for tanking and healing is my first job is this. My second job is DPS. Does that mean that I'm not going to treat DPS as though it's unimportant? No, it's extremely important. I'm definitely going to be DPSing anytime that I have the free time. But if it's a choice between doing better healing and doing better DPS because my party is dying, I'm going to sacrifice the DPS.
Sure.
And there are a lot of people who are like, no, fuck you. So.
I do my rotation. I try my best to keep it in my head, even though it's a little bit tough for my feeble old brain. But I do my rotation. I fuck it up sometimes, but hey, I keep you alive. I throw Blackest Night on people when they're about to do something stupid. Just like with you, when we did that dungeon the other day, I saw you rescue somebody from doing...
Did I?
Yeah, you did. When it was the first boss. Yeah.
Yeah, I've had to do that a couple of times in the near raid too. I wish that had a shorter cooldown. I understand why it doesn't, because people use it to be trolls enough. But I just still... Sometimes you really need it. And it's not even that somebody's bad. It's just like if they're new.
Sure.
And you're trying to help out.
I'll see every once in a while, it's like, this guy has a sliver of health left. He's about to eat an AoE. Darkest Night.
Yeah.
And maybe they notice, maybe they don't. But I noticed.
You're like...
I saved you.
And I got a cool... What is it? You get something extra.
Yeah, you get a free hit. I don't know what it's called.
I don't remember what it is.
But you get a free hit. It's nice.
Yeah.
All right. And with that, I think we're going to wrap up our gameplay and non-spoilery kind of talk of Shadowbringers. And we're going to get into the spoiler section.
Yay.
So, we are going into spoilers now. So, if you have not completed up to 5.3 of the Shadowbringers story, leave now. All right. So, how do we want to do this? Do we want to start off with just like how things began, or do we just want to give like our overall impressions of the story?
I guess it depends on what context you want to talk about it in.
I would say overall, okay, how about we try this? I know a lot of people have some very strong feelings about Heavensward. And consider it the best expansion. I consider it good. I do not consider it the best anymore because I think Shadowbringers is the best Final Fantasy XIV expansion.
I think Shadowbringers is the best Final Fantasy game there's been in years.
Yes,
and
100%.
I'm sure there's a lot of people who are going to be like, fuck you, but I'm sorry.
It's by far and away.
It's wonderful.
It's got some of the best characters. It has the best villain. It has really great, like, twists, and it has just one of the most satisfying endings too, that doesn't go into, oh man, everything's so dark and miserable. Isn't that good? Doesn't that make for good storytelling?
I mean, it definitely gives you the sense of shit's gonna hit the fan in the next, but I mean, at this point in time,
well, that's the cliffhanger. I'm talking about the ending of
just 5.0. Yes, I mean, I had
okay, 5.0, yeah, but even 5.3, except for that one little fucking bit at the end, it's the most happy ending.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's great.
It's
pretty much, if they didn't have that one little bit at the end and they were like 5.3 is the end of the story of Final Fantasy XIV, I'd be sad because there would be no more, but I'd be like, okay.
It'd be leaving a lot of things unanswered, but it would be
I would still be okay with it.
It'd be pretty damn good.
I mean, there's a lot of things that get unanswered in a lot of Final Fantasy games.
Sure.
Think about all the stuff in 10 where you're like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
Yeah. I haven't played 10 as recently as you have, so I couldn't say for certain, but I hear you.
I mean, there's just been a lot of stuff. I mean, you could have some things you could say about 12 that you feel like could be addressed more. There's a lot in 13 that could be addressed more.
Yeah.
Why
don't we... So we mentioned characters. Why don't we go through with some different characters? First off, probably the most important character inside of Shadowbringers is the Crystal Exarch.
The boy.
Who is...
He's fucking precious.
It was the most secretive thing in the world that nobody knew who he was.
Everybody knew from
the second that... I mean, mostly. There were a few times that they tried to throw you off the trail of who it could be, but, I mean, at one point he just straight up lies to you. You go like, did you find a cat boy inside this tower? I didn't see shit.
I was really high.
Yeah. What are you talking about? There ain't no cat boy in there.
You're just there like with a ball of yarn and some catnip, shaking it in his face.
I mean, man, at one point, I think it got me at one point because I'm like, man, he just straight up, he denied it. It's not him. I was like, okay, who could it be? Could it be Alphino from the future?
No.
Could it be...
Well, it couldn't be him from the future because the first isn't the future. It's an entirely different world. Well,
but as you find out later, he is from the future.
Well, yeah.
And at one point there was like this weird reference that it might be La Habrea. Like, yeah, there was this weird thing where...
I never got that impression.
Well, the main villain, Emmett Selk, makes some sort of he makes some sort of comment that I can't remember the exact text of, like, oh, La Habrea jumped around between different bodies, and whatever happened to him? I'm like, how could it be
I think
La
that was more
Habrea?
of a comment not toward the Crystal Exarch as it was as much toward like your friends being out of their bodies and like,
I guess
oh,
so.
what's gonna happen to
I guess
you?
so. Speaking of your friends, actually, well, let's continue on Crystal Exarch slash Grahatia.
The boy.
I thought he was. I thought he played an old man in a young body well.
Yeah.
Like, he's got these moments where he's obviously very, like,
Tired.
well, yeah, tired, but I was going to say wise and, like, I know exactly what's going on. I am unflappable. Like, Emmett would just come in there and, like, smirk at him and be like, meh. And he'd just be like, yeah, okay, you do you.
Yeah, like, oh, you're so cute.
You go right ahead. And then, as we get later inside the patch, especially in 5.3, he just reveals just like, oh, goodness gracious me, oh, Mr. Warrior Light, I guess we go on an adventure together.
I think it was very much not, I think part of it was this persona he had to be.
Yeah.
He got into the first and was like, oh God, now I have to be this leader. And then brings you to the first and he's like, oh fuck, now I have to like actually know what's going on. Okay. And it was very much like when the hood is down, he's more himself again.
Yeah.
And when he puts, when he's being the Crystal Exarch, it's like, okay, I'm the symbol.
Yeah.
Rather than the man.
Yeah.
So.
Is there anything else you wanted to say about Grahatia?
He's precious.
He's pretty cool. And I am very excited that he's going to be a part of the crew now.
Yes, I think it's good. I think you need some more bros.
Yeah.
I love that we get to use him as a trust.
That's actually something we didn't mention inside the gameplay portion of it, the trust system.
Trusts.
But we can talk about it here because it's a little bit of a spoiler.
A little bit spoilery.
I mean, whatever. The trust system's great.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, it works. It's a little slow going, but it's the thing that you trade off if you're going to be playing with NPCs instead of real people.
Well, I was going to say, too, it's not any slower than waiting 30 minutes in a queue if you're DPS or getting stuck with people who just really suck.
Yeah.
So I will say that it's more painful to do as a DPS than it is to do as a healer or a tank. Because as a tank, you set the pace.
Something I will say, I don't know if you saw, apparently Graha has they gave him new AI.
Oh,
he will fucking holy spam as a healer. He is
I will never see that because
I know, but I'm just saying, apparently they gave him an upgrade compared to the other ones.
Good.
He gets 2 brain cells instead of just the 1. And so, yeah, the trust system's great. It lets you go through the dungeons without having to worry too much. I will say I don't know why they didn't make that be the case inside the trials also.
Because there's not enough people. They're 8-man.
They could have figured something out, especially with the Crystal Exarch and Lena.
But that's only 2 extra. You still need 2 more.
Well, think about it. Okay, you got yourself, you got your...
I guess.
You got your crew, your scions.
I think trials would be a lot harder because they're a lot more mechanic heavy.
They did it with that one with Sid and the Bojan front thing.
That one wasn't hard, though. That one's not... I would not call that a normal version of a trial.
No, it isn't.
I'm sorry.
Admittedly. But it's a little... Like, think about somebody that goes through this and does all the dungeons. Mm-hmm. Okay. We'll get back into that in a second.
Not, I know, but still, it's not hard. The trials... Okay.
Let's continue on characters for now. Let's talk about your trust party, your scions of the 7th Dawn, who... I will say, honestly, up until this point, I had a certain amount of affection for because they've been around since 2.0.
Well enough. I thought he was a little bit pizza cuttery. And I liked Alphino. Alize was fine.
I liked Ishtola. She
was fine.
I liked her giving the burn on the Magni inside Stormblood.
Well, yes, there is when she started having more personality to me. Mm-hmm. Don't forget, she was fucking passed out through all of, I think, Stormblood.
Pretty much,
she gets bodied by
your
Xenos
favorite character.
At the beginning. Oh, yeah, I love him so much. She gets bodied by him right at the very beginning, and then she's out of commission. They always seem to do that, where they, like, bump off somebody like so you can't see them, or at least they did to that point.
Probably they didn't know what they were going to do with the character, and so they're like, oh, she passed out.
I guess, or she just wasn't really. I mean, you don't really fuck with Urianger too much in Stormblood.
Yeah, well, Urianger, he's off reading or some shit. That dude, he's always off doing his own thing.
He had a lot of character growth in Shadowbringers. He became a lot more interesting there.
Well,
like the not being able to swim and the fucking like drowning at the end. You just see his body floating in the. It was great.
All of them became more interesting. Thancred got to turn into dad.
Yeah.
Y'shtola started becoming more like Master Matoya, where she's got this kind of crotchety attitude to her, but also like this weird kind of flirty relationship with your character.
Kind of. I think of her more as like mom.
She's got like a mom thing, but also there's like she's threatening to spank you and shit, and it's like, what?
Wait, when was that? I forget.
At the one point, she says something like, "You better be careful. I'll turn you over my knee." I'm like, "Don't threaten me with a good time, Y'shtola."
There's a lot of people who feel that way. Don't worry, you're not.
No. But then there's okay, who is? Oh, Urianger. It's great. Everybody finally just goes, "What the fuck is with you, Urianger? Why are you such a weirdo? Why the fuck do you talk like that?" Everybody sort of goes like, "You weird asshole," and he's like, I know my own self dost do weird shit, and I art good with it, bitch." And he actually has like some parts where he gives people shit. Yeah, like, I don't know if you remember. No. What was it? Inside Amarang. When you're going to get the fucking cart that I don't even know why you bothered, considering Karate Grandpa kicks it like 5 minutes after you get inside.
God damn it, I hated that son of a bitch.
And so, like, at one point, that's when you're first going to get the mine cart, the miners come up and they're just like, oh, we thought you're like an ancient wizard or something like that. And is it like they're recounting a story or something like that? And they mistake Urianger for this ancient wizard with like knowledge, like arcane knowledge. And he's like, I would hear more about this ancient wizard. And you know how you can talk to him in between the quests before you continue on? If you go and talk to him in between that, he goes, "Dost thou seek the ancient wisdom of the wizard, young one?"
I do remember that.
Just like you can imagine wagging his eyebrows at you like,
I liked the end of this most recent with 5.3 where Y'shtola's like, I shall join the fray after I finish my tea. And he's just like, and lo, the dread witch did kick some ass. And it was just funny.
And doesn't she like fucking down the tea immediately after that?
No, she just like takes a sip and then it just kind of looks at him like, ha ha ha.
Maybe I will.
Very smarmy.
Very sassy.
They were all great.
They actually have some personality.
Yes, they were wonderful. I actually care about them now. Whereas previously it was like, okay.
Probably the people that didn't get much character development because they've kind of gotten it. They got it before this was Alphinaud and Alice.
I think they actually had more character development than you think because the whole Alice shaking the ever-living shit out of Alphinaud when he sasses her. I mean,
that's a little newer.
She was. You definitely got the impression that they had sort of a sibling rivalry sort of thing, but they weren't quite so like, oh yeah, okay.
They were a lot more expressive. Yes. Alphinaud had most of his character development at Heavensward.
Yeah.
And then,
but he's had a lot here too.
He had a fair amount.
Like his farewell to Dulia Chai, fucking cried.
It was pretty good. And there was that. I don't think it completely stuck the landing, but there was like the comparison between him and Vothri.
Oh, yeah.
Like, he thinks he knows everything. And Alphinaud at the end of 2.0 was like, I'm the hottest shit that ever was. And then that didn't turn out too great.
Yeah.
And Alice continues to have this thing like, there's a sad little kid that I'm upset is fucked up. Because she had that with the Gubu thing. Gabu. And then she has it with little Halric.
Yeah.
And I mean, I love Alice. I think she's probably my favorite out of all of them. But they haven't really given her an arc.
Allie Bay.
Is that?
That's what they... like Bay, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I like her. Um, continuing on with the Scions, Minfilia / Reen. I would say
she was definitely, she had her growth in becoming Reen.
yeah.
She was always more, I don't know, it was interesting. Her thing was interesting when you kind of look at it with Karate Grandpa.
Yeah.
Because he was so fucking annoying.
Yes, he was.
But it really pissed me off how that was one of the few things that happened that I wish they would have done differently, is how he dies.
I'm very surprised he was never a boss.
Well, yes, and all of his, like, reason for doing everything that he did, you basically only find out in that one duty where you're fighting him by yourself. And it's all the talk about watching all of the Minfilias, training them, raising them as his own, and then having to watch them all just die.
Yeah.
And you can imagine...
It's like, oh, okay, I get it now.
That after years of watching what are basically your daughters, and training them up and then sending them out to be lambs to the slaughter, that you would say, anything is better than this.
It's not worth it.
And you would just go completely to the other side.
Yeah.
So, I get it.
But don't you basically just find that out in the Thancred fight?
I don't even know if it's it's either the Thancred fight, that one,
yeah,
or the other one, or both of them kind of together.
I think there's some call-outs in both of them, but it's basically just interstitial dialogue where you're beating the shit out of him.
And mostly he was annoying because it's like, why are you so strong again?
He's the general who fought the Senators for years. I don't know what his deal with his dragon was, why he could wear it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know what this dude's deal is. But they probably didn't know either.
I mean, he was fine. They needed somebody to be antagonistic to you throughout the thing.
They were going to have Vothri waddling around doing shit.
I do think that he was probably, unfortunately, one of the weakest points of the expansion.
Yes.
Because he just didn't make a lot of sense.
I want to move on to the villains here in a second, but I think we need to hit on one more of our allies inside of Shadowbringers, and that's Ardbert.
Oh, yeah.
Ardbert,
Poor Ardbert.
He was very important, but I wouldn't say that he was... How do I say this? He was there, and he popped up when exactly you needed him to, and it was this... He made for a cool moment, but mostly he was just there to be sad in between your...
It was definitely like, don't you feel bad? And you're like, yes,
yeah,
this whole
man.
expansion has made me feel bad. Don't make it worse. Oh, too bad we're making it worse.
There was the part where he's like, I want to try to save people, and then he doesn't.
Oh god, that whole fucking fight.
Yeah.
Where where you're like, Lena's all broken out afterward, and
that's
he
another
like
one.
wants to save somebody, but he's just a fucking ghost. So when he tries to run through the monster, he literally runs through it, and it runs through him and fucking slaughters the person he wanted to protect.
He's just upset.
And it's just like,
Now I know people play in both Japanese and English.
Mm-hmm.
Lena's voice actress was fucking phenomenal.
She did really good. It was funny. I remember thinking, like, I mean, she's fine. And then it gets to the point where she's, like, upset.
Breaking down. And I was like, oh, she's good.
She's really good. Okay.
Yeah. She's amazing.
Everybody really stepped it up. All the voice actors really stepped it up with this one. I don't know if direction changed or if they were given more freedom or, I don't know. But they did an amazing job.
So, I think that Ardbert... Okay, he had his big moment where
you
good. Merge.
I think it was important for it so that you could merge and everything.
Yeah. And then he had one really great moment inside 5.3.
Seto.
Yeah. It was like basically going and seeing his old dog.
It was sad.
It just
so much of it was sad. I'm so sad we've left the first. It is kind of dumb though now, because now that Graha's back in the source, it's kind of like I go to the first and I'm like, I really love it, but can I kidnap him and bring him back here and then just shut the doors?
Oh, you really like the first, I know.
I loved the first. I would stay in the first because it's just great. For one thing, it's saved.
There's no more you have to deal with.
She's like, my job is done. I can go live in the library now.
Well, as you know, there are some problems still that probably wouldn't save you if you decided to stay inside the first. There are a lot of other like little allies. There's people like the big cat dude that wants to be with Y'shtola.
Runar.
There's the people inside that you meet inside the different towns. There's the fairy person who's like completely in love with you, but also wants to kill you. Like fucking what's Yandere fairy?
I feel like she's, I don't know. I wouldn't say yandere.
Maybe not that far, but still pretty like, you have to love me, my little sapling.
I think it's more like nobody else touches my little sapling.
Yeah.
And then when she turns to you, she's like, oh, you precious, wonderful, wonderful, fabulous child. Why don't you call on me more often? And you're like, because you're a little crazy.
There are a lot of different really neat characters.
They did good with their side characters this time around. The only people I didn't love was the bunnies.
Oh, they were just forgettable.
They were fine.
They tried with some of them. Like I remember one of the bunny sisters was like kind of sassy and kind of fucked up sometimes. They were fine.
They weren't bad. They weren't bad at all. It just...
All right. Now that we've talked about the good guys, let's talk about the bad guys. We already talked about Ranjit, Karate Grandpa. Let's talk about his boss, Vothri.
Vothri, I was so happy to kill.
Mr. Fat Evil. He was gross in a good way.
Yeah, he was definitely... They did... Something that I will say that I know a lot of people really loved is they had two named and important fat characters in the game. And that's Vothri and Dulia Chai.
Yeah.
Vothri is disgusting and horrible. He becomes fucking ungodly beautiful. That, the whole meme of, oh no, he's hot, when he transforms into innocence. And he's still the same disgusting, awful, the world belongs to me person. And Dulia Chai is just precious.
Bursting with love.
She's precious. And you see her growth. But she was always kind of a good person. She just had her head in the sand.
Yeah.
And so, but it was nice to see, it's not the same typical of like, oh, this person's the villain and they're fat. And, oh, this person, because Dulia Chai could have easily been like a joke.
Oh, you peasants.
Yeah,
and shit like that.
And she easily could have been the joke with the husband, like, oh, I married her for the money or what. But no, he genuinely loved her and she was a genuinely wonderful person. Yeah. Vothri was the embodiment of gluttony.
Yes. You saw him at one point just fucking stuffing his face, not just with food, but with people.
Yeah, the meal. And he sits there and eats a sin eater, doesn't he?
When you confront him after busting ass through Yulmore, you go up in his town. Alphinaud's like, we're here to stop you. Vothri's just like, like eating a fucking lion.
Yeah. There was a lot of this expansion was extremely dark, and that's I think part of the reason a lot of people loved it. But they did a really good job making it dark, but not like the awful grimdark. Everything sucks, and don't you just feel awful the entire time? There's
one incredibly body horror kind of moment with Tesleen, the girl from Amarang, where you just see her eyes bleed with this like white. Wax-like substance as
it was very...
she like vomits up her own internal organs, and they don't really show it for very long. Instead, they do the good thing that horror does, that they just cut away to the reaction of your character and Alisaie just looking like, what in the fuck?
It was very it was very Drakengard and Nier, honestly.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I remember seeing it and being like, are we sure Yoko Taro didn't have anything to do with the
Yeah, it was pretty fucked up. That was probably the worst it got, though.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to remember. I don't think there was any more, like, body horror moments.
It wasn't body horror moments. I think a lot of the horror came from Yulmore, and it was very, like, background horror. Like, with the songstress girl.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, they're gonna fucking...
Well, and just realizing that the whole, like, advancement of these people, they don't actually advance. They get turned into food.
Yeah.
And you're eating people.
Yeah. Like, there's the moment where they realize, Soylent Green is people.
Yeah. I remember everybody, just as soon as they were like, oh, it's Miol, everyone went, no.
I know what that is. Yeah, Vothri was gross, and
But he was also really good.
he was a great villain.
Yeah.
He was a great villain,
He was
and
a petulant child.
he had a great sort of breakdown. I never felt threatened by him. It was always
No.
annoyed by him.
Well, and it was always a lot of pity.
Yeah. I never pitied his ass. I felt like, I don't know. I don't know. He was fucked from the start.
Yeah.
Maybe that's pity, but I was just like, nah, you were kind of fucked. He was barely a person. He was in the embodiment of how fucked up this country got, or this world got.
And it really was, like I said, gluttony. It was about, wanting all the power, all the everything.
Yeah.
To have everything.
If we want to talk about the best villain, obviously in 14, in probably most of the Final Fantasy games, that would be Emmett Selk.
Yeah, he was great.
Emmett Selk is multifaceted. He's pitiable and understandable and relatable.
Yeah, that was one of the most interesting lines that I thought from 5.3 is that when you're in the Crystal Tower, right before everybody's about to, you're supposed to send them back to the source. If you talk to Urianger, he has the line about, the only way this could be more complete is if the Crystal Exarch were with us. And he goes, no. And if Emmett Selk were smirking in the background or something like that.
He was a part of the crew.
I say he was as much your friend as anybody else was. And that's what made fighting him so great and so sad, because you 100% understood, because it's like you look at your friends and go, yeah, I'd burn the world down for them.
Now, his explanation for why he's doing what he's doing is completely deplorable.
Oh, yeah.
When it comes to him going, I think he literally has the line, I do not consider you alive, therefore I will not be guilty of murdering you.
Yeah, he basically just says, whatever.
It's like, okay.
It's like, yeah, but you don't get to decide that. And then Alizé's whole fucking speech about there where she's fighting.
Yeah.
My heart.
Yeah, she has a great, speech against him where she's basically like, don't kill my husbando/waifu. I'm gonna save them because... Well,
she's just saying, he's saying, you're not worth anything, and she's like, you don't get to decide that. It may not be your life, but there are lives full of love and hope and all this shit, and it's just like, stop, I'm supposed to be fighting, and I'm just gonna cry.
Yeah, there's some great stuff.
And he was great, and I don't think anything has ever ended, or any villain has ever ended on a better line of just remember us. Mm-hmm. And then they fucking bring him back for a little cameo with the
5.3.
The hand wave. Just, I don't know if you did, but when they first had it pop up, I was like, oh shit, man, it's me and my Amber. Wait, I'm standing there. Wait, so who is? And then he does the little, and I was like, ah!
Well, I knew when he snapped. I knew when he did that.
Well, but they've been showing that as an emote.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So we're supposed to get the snap as an emote.
Oh.
And so I didn't make the connection at first, but then he did the hand wave, and I was just like, come back.
Yeah.
Give me a hug.
No, he's the bird. It's all good.
And Hythlodaeus is so good. I love Hythlodaeus.
Let's talk about that for a second. Another reason why Emmett Selk is really good is because he gives you your connection to him and to the other Ascian/Amarosians. Gives you for some context for who your character is.
Oh, it's so good.
You find out that your character is one of the original 14
Convocation of the 14?
A part of the Convocation of 14 that ruled over Amarot and the ancient, I guess, Ascian culture. The
Amarosians.
And the Amarosians. I really don't know if Ascian is a
Ascian is just the word for the ones who are around now.
Got it. So the ancient Amarosians, the Convocation of 14, each of them had different offices and things that they did. Mm-hmm. Your character, who occupied the seat of Azim, similar to Azema, similar to the Azim step.
I'll be very curious to see if they expand on that anymore.
Your character was the traveler, the shepherd on the stars, the one who went around kicking fucking ass. And
it was their
helping
job
people
to learn about the rest of the world, so they could bring back knowledge to Amarot to share.
In other words, your character has been doing
good.
this since the dawn of time.
It's so good. They did such a good job.
And
I love, too, they just give you the name of the seat. And I don't think they'll ever try to give you an actual.
No.
Because people, ever since they started showing Amarot and showing the Amaratines or Amarosians or however the fuck you say it, people have been imagining their original person. And now they have the seat.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody who's done that can still be right.
Sure.
And they're very good about doing that for you, is letting you have that agency to make your own character and make it be the baby. And I like it so much.
Let's talk about one more villain, which is...
His is almost just more heartbreaking than Emmett Selk.
Well, let's talk about the one more villain inside of Shadowbringers, and that's Elidibus, who's actually been around since fucking 2.0. He didn't have that much of a character inside 2.0, but he's been around.
Well, I am curious to know, what did you think when you saw him at the end?
The thing where he was a kid? Mm-hmm. I'll admit, I thought that was just a representation of like how he was reduced, but I've seen other people guessing that basically Elidibus was a kid when he got inducted into the Convocation of 14.
There's a comment from, I think, the 12 stuff with the Espers where they're talking about Zodiark, and it talks about they were fearful of his power, so they made him a child forever. And Elidibus is the heart of Zodiark.
Yeah.
And so if you think about Elidibus and his single-minded, just I am going to do this, this is what I was meant to do, this is, everybody's counting on me, and then you imagine him as a child.
Yeah. It makes sense.
All of this responsibility placed on the shoulders of a child, just desperately wanting his friends and family back and to fulfill his purpose. It's fucking sad.
That last line, man, where he's like, "It's another beautiful day. The rains are, but you're not here to see it." No, like, you almost expect there to be another line after that, just like "I'm coming home, friends" or something like that. But just that's the last line. I'm like, shit, that was a good line.
It's just fucking sad. She has.
What's her name? Ishikawa?
She has done such an... I mean, I know that she's not the only one that contributes. Yeah. They have all done.
Yoshi P, all them
folks, the direction, her being the main writer for these. Mm-hmm. And when she said, "You'll know which one I wrote," it's like, yes, we fucking do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yes. It's amazing. I hope that she continues to contribute. And I know people want her to go away and work on the next mainline one.
That's just me.
I'm like,
that's just me.
No. She stays here. Get your own.
So let me see.
So his was just very sad.
Yeah.
I also think it kind of makes sense. I think it's interesting that he doesn't know who you are. And I guess it's because you're
That was an interesting part, yeah.
And I guess it's because you are the traveler.
Well, none of them. Going back to 2.0 now, it kind of some of the stuff that we learned inside this one gives context to why the Asians didn't really take you seriously at first.
Emmett Selk knew who you were.
At the very end.
But none of them know you were them. But he knew who Azem was.
Yeah.
Whereas, even when Elidibus saw... Because they're never going to give you a face like Emmett Selk or whatever.
Sure.
You notice they never really gave Elidibus a face. They still kept him covered.
Well, even Emmett Selk didn't get a face. You got Solus.
Well, but I think that's, as close as we're going to get.
That's as close, sure.
But still, you get more of a visual, not somebody else's body,
sure.
So, when Emmett Selk saw the Amarosian version of you standing there right before his fight, he's like, no, it can't be you. Like, God damn it, I know who you are, and I know.
Yeah, that was when he figured it out.
Now it all makes sense.
Yeah.
But no, it can't be. It's just a trick of the whatever.
Yeah, a trick of the light.
When Elidibus sees you, he's like, what?
To be fair, they had already said he'd been forgetting a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's true. But it's still interesting. And, of course, like I said, you're the traveler, so maybe you just weren't there when he was appointed.
Perhaps so.
Especially if he was a kid.
My read on that was they figured you were a warrior of light from the very beginning, and there's shitloads
Yeah.
of warriors of light. There's shitloads. We had to fight a shitload of warriors of light inside the last dungeon, inside the Hero's
Yeah.
Gauntlet, and they're like, "Oh, it's another one. It's fine." And they kept trying to kill you. And they're like, "Why won't this fucker die?"
Yeah.
And I don't think it's until like this patch they realize, "Oh God, it's a Zim."
Well, yeah.
Yeah,
But I still don't think most of the Asians, like, I don't think
the
Fuckface
Sundered.
McGee.
Yeah, I have complicated feelings about
I
Fan
don't
Daniel.
like Fan Daniel.
We'll talk about him in a second. But I thought that was a cool kind of like thing where they very much underestimated you for a very long time until it killed them.
Yeah.
And La Habrea is dead. Emet is dead. Elidibus is dead. Now you're just left with these shithead kids.
Yeah, and all of these, he's saying, like, the last of the Unsundered, because...
That don't give a shit about bringing back the good old days. They're just like, let's fuck shit up.
I say they're just about annihilation.
Yeah.
And bringing back Lord Zodiark.
Yeah, darkness. Bleh.
So you have to wonder, do they even know what the original, like, fight was for?
Maybe some of them, I'm imagining fucking Giggly Boy is just like, oh, cool, whatever.
There's a few that I'm a little bit disappointed that we never got to see more of. Like, I don't even remember how she died, but Iggiorm?
Wait, didn't she merge with La Habrea?
Maybe?
You fight, like, right before you fight Knights of the Round?
Oh, maybe. I don't remember a lot of Heaven's Ward because I was just desperately trying to get to the end so that I could actually play a lot of the stuff because everybody else that I was playing with at the time was at the end already, and I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
So I am very excited to go back and do the new Game Plus stuff and actually pay closer attention this time.
Yes.
Because everybody loves it so much, and I have a very just sort of like, it was fine view on it.
Yeah.
I love Hashafont.
Sure, everybody does.
But, I'll be very intrigued to go back and see that.
Let's talk about... Well, I want to talk about the trials here in just a second, but I want to... Why don't we talk about the very, very end first? Well, no.
Very, very...
Actually, I take
very...
that back. Let's talk about the trials first, and then we'll talk about the very, very end, and then where it's going next.
Okay.
So let's talk about the trials. I thought the worst of all of them, because it's right there in the middle, was Titania.
It's not as important to the story as the others are, because Innocence is defeating Vothri. Hades is Hades. How could it be anything other than fucking fabulous?
With the music and shit. By the way, all the music is fucking amazing. There's hardly anything to talk about.
No, I mean the Soken is just wonderful.
Yeah.
All of them. I know some. I don't think every single track is by Soken.
There's
Most
collaboration.
Of them, all of the ones I'm terrible. I don't remember the near
Keiichi
composer's name.
Keiichi Okabe.
He's fabulous. That's something I think that you'll enjoy in the new near raids is the
remixes.
Yes. Now it's a lot more subdued in this one, which is very strange. But one of the songs is reused. I may have already watched it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
One of the songs is reused, but I thought it was really interesting how in the first near raid it was like a Final Fantasy remix of a Nier song, and now at the end of this one it's a Nier remix of a Final Fantasy song, and it's really cool.
Yeah. Trials, Titania. I'm not even saying from a story perspective, because I feel like they just needed a trial at that point.
Ruby Weapon is fine.
Ruby Weapon's tough.
It's more difficult.
It's also optional.
Yeah.
But sure, we're talking about the ones inside Shadowbringers. Ruby Weapon is tough, and
the good thing about Ruby Weapon is that it has it's basically a save point.
Right, the midway point where you have to fight the weird, creepy...
If you make it there,
the nail version.
You at least just have to start from there.
Yeah. I think it's cool. Yeah. I also just like it because it's like Final Fantasy VII, and it's got some great music.
Yeah. I do like Ruby Weapon. I like all of them.
They're
would
all
do all
good.
of them.
I would say Innocence is good. I would put it below Hades.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Hades is probably forever going to be my favorite just because of the
Context.
just the emotion. Yes.
Yeah. I would
And it was such a good fight in Extreme.
I would also just say I still think okay, from a story feeling kind of point of view, I think that Hades is better than Warrior of Light.
I'll agree with that, mostly because we have such an attachment to Emmett Selk at that point. Whether it's... Because I'm not sure there's anybody who can I mean, I'm sure there is someone somewhere who just didn't like him. But I don't think there's very many people. Like, they might think he's an awful, awful villain and I don't enjoy him. But they can admit that, like, yes, he's great. He's great at, what he is for.
Sure.
But yes, there's just such an emotion. Part of, I think, Elidibus's emotion comes from the end of realizing he's a child.
Sure.
I think it has more impact now that I know he's a child, whereas I knew all the sad shit about Hades previously.
And you learn it over a very long period of time.
My heart.
And Hades is around a long time.
Mm-hmm. That's the other thing. Yeah. That's the other thing that they talk about is he's just as old, way older than Crystal Exarch, and he's been living with this despair of having lost his entire civilization for his entire life.
Yeah.
And he can't forget. So much so that he remembers it so perfectly clearly that he can recreate the entirety of Amarot and all its citizens.
Amarot, we didn't really talk about zones much, but Amarot was...
I just go there and sit there sometimes. For the music.
It looks like Rapture from BioShock.
Oh, it's something that I'm surprised you didn't know. It's Greek.
Yeah. I might have read that at some point. Isn't it something Sorrow or something like that?
Amarot is the name of a capital city of a place called Utopia.
That makes sense. So Warrior of Light, I think, is probably the cooler and actually more difficult fight. Hades is not hard. Okay, Hades normal is not hard.
Here's the thing. I don't think it's fair to say that right now, because at the time when it was brand new, and it always is this way, at the time when it's brand new, the fight is hard.
Yeah, but Hades didn't have a fucking one-hit kill unless you use a LB3 tank buster.
They've kind of gotten to the point. I definitely felt like they stepped up the difficulty on certain things this time, because shit hits a lot harder now. In these, I feel like the dungeon, you get hit for a lot harder.
Oh, yeah.
The raid beats the ever-living shit out of you. And the trial definitely hits really hard. So I feel like they've been every time ramping up difficulty, because a lot of people complain about it not being difficult enough.
I think the worst part about the Warrior of Light fight is that mid-level transition, the midpoint transition. I love it because of the Emmett Selk snap and wave and all that kind of shit. But immediately out of jumping out of that, you have to be ready with that tank LB3.
I don't think it's as immediate as you're thinking.
It's not immediate, but you have to be on, man. And if you fuck it up, you go right back to the beginning.
But it's not the beginning. That one has a midway point too.
No, it doesn't.
Pretty sure.
Not with me.
Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm thinking of a different fight.
Nah, Warrior of Light doesn't have that.
Because no, it's 2P that has that. The 2P fight has the midpoint.
Yeah.
That's what I'm confusing it with.
Yeah.
Sorry.
It's okay.
So yes, but I mean, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it, but I also did Hades Extreme, which is also a long fight. And has a point at which you wish you could just go back to, and if you don't, you have to start all over. And it has a very similar thing, where in Hades Extreme, he doesn't have a LB3. And this is, of course, the extreme version and not the normal version. But there's a point at which two range DPS need to bait certain, I think it's like lasers or it might be just dropped AoEs. And then everybody else has to spread to two sides of the arena and share these two lasers that come out. And if something happens and somebody's dead, then you're maybe missing somebody to bait that AoE, and then you all die.
Mm-hmm.
So, there was a lot of trial and error on that one. As I understand it, the extreme version of Warrior of Light is not that bad. And the reason I say that, I do think it's a very mechanically heavy fight, but from what I understand, people have been dying a lot and still clearing, which is very unusual.
I guess you'll find out.
Yes, I will tomorrow.
Cool. I think we can talk about the dungeons, but I wouldn't say the dungeons. That's the thing. Final Fantasy dungeons are not that different, especially as you get further and further in. They become pretty samey. I love them.
Yeah.
But you go through, you fight some trash, you fight a boss. You go through, fight some trash, fight a boss. You go through, fight some trash, and you fight the final boss.
I do think it's interesting how they are expanding the repertoire of the bosses and causing you to have to do more mechanics for just dungeon bosses.
Yeah, I like that. I think they're cool.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the what's the very first one?
The Beef Boy?
No, not inside the last. Holminster Switch.
Yes, that one.
The very last one where you have to run around the thing in a circle.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
And it makes going back to some of the older dungeons almost a little bit more difficult because it's like, oh, you were supposed to stack there. How would you know that? There's no stack marker. Well, they didn't have stack markers back then. Oops.
Yeah. I don't know. The old dungeons, I think for me, the worst part about them is you don't have your whole kit.
Oh, yeah.
And it makes it more difficult. There was somebody, I was just looking around through Twitter, and it's somebody that, it's not someone I follow, but I think it's someone who I follow's, like someone they follow.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, man, I keep hearing really great things about 14, but, I played it, and it just feels like ass because the GCD is so long, and it's just, does it ever get any better? And people are like, low-level fighting is kind of a slog.
Yes,
Once
it is.
you get to your, and I do think that's a complaint of a lot of people, is that when you have to go back for things, it's painful.
Yeah.
Because, I'm sitting here going, oh, I should go back and do some of the old Final Fantasy 12 24-mans, and then I go, but I don't have Afflatus Misery and Rapture and
all that good shit.
I don't wanna. And I still have to use stone. Ew. So.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking earlier, it's crazy that for the first, Realm Reborn, you have 1 through 50. And then for each of the expansions, it's just 10 levels. And I know there's a lot inside of Realm Reborn. There's a lot of fucking areas. But that's a lot of content packed inside that base game.
Yeah.
Or a lot of levels packed inside the base game. And you can pretty much fly through them.
Especially now with the way they've condensed it. I've heard a lot of people really praising that and saying that they did a really good job.
They've added some new armor, by the way. The House Fortant armor is inside of Stone Vigil now.
Oh, nice. That's good.
Yeah. So you can complete your Hashafont cosplay.
Sad pan.
So, let's talk about the ending of 5.3 and where we think we're going next. At the very end of 5.3, we see my favorite character and yours, Xenos Ye Galbus, and his new boyfriend, fucking lunatic McGee, Fandaniel.
I remember messaging you because you managed to finish the story before I did because...
Somehow.
Well, I can't do... I had to stop on the trial.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't do the trial because I was on the clock.
Yeah.
Since I'm working from home right now and I have to answer the phone. I was like, I got maybe all of 3 phone calls that day. And I was like,
what if you got one?
If I went in there, I would get 50 all of a sudden. Of course. So I had to stop.
Yeah.
And so there was at least an hour or 2 where I was sitting there going... Start. Let me go.
Move faster as you poke the clock.
Yeah, just sitting there stabbing my damn. But I don't remember where I was going with that.
I finished the story beforehand.
You,
yeah.
And when I finally did finish, and I was like, my progression for this fucking patch has been, yeah, boy. Oh, right. you.
I like Xenos.
I hate Xenos.
I don't like him in the way I like Emmett Silk, though. Like, Emmett Silk is a great villain because he's an interesting character. Xenos is fucking dumb.
Well, see, that's the thing. I did like Xenos in Stormblood. I thought he was wonderful, mustache twirlingly, I just want to watch the world burn evil, and I loved it. I thought it was a little bit weird that he killed himself, but
Yeah.
okay. I was like, okay, well...
They probably knew by that point they were going to bring his ass back.
But I didn't want him to come back, and at this point, it's just obnoxious. Because he continues to be unreasonably powerful for no goddamn reason.
I
hate him.
that he is so fucking strong for no reason because he's just like this immovable force that is super evil.
But he's just...
And just like wants to
just
fight,
Ranjit.
kiss, fuck you. No. Ranjit is Xenos.
But I still hate him. For the exact same reasons I hate Ranjit. I hate Xenos. And I actually somehow like Ranjit better because knowing the shit about the kids. Because he has a personality. Xenos' personality is just that he's a fucking jackass who's stupidly powerful for no reason.
I get it. I still like him. I think it's so fucking funny that he's just like, no, he isn't doing that. He's bored by the fucking world. He's even bored by the fucking lunatic who's there flinging coins and like jerking off at the idea of murdering people.
Well,
just
he's
like,
boring.
bleh.
I'm sorry. Xenos is boring.
He's just like, who's this asshole?
He's not boring. He's just, in comparison, in particular, to Emmett Selk, who is a magnificent bastard.
Yeah.
Xenos just sucks. I'm sorry.
Well,
And
Xenos...
look, my best friend loves Xenos. She ships her Warrior of Light with Xenos.
Okay. That's more than I'm doing, but okay.
And she loves him. God bless. I can't stand the fucker.
That's the thing. I like him ironically.
I just want him to be dead.
I think he's dumb. I think it's a dumb big villain man who just wants to do big fights and is like, oh, Warrior of Light, I just want to kiss you and then stab you and then kiss you some more.
I think the reason I dislike him so much, too, is it feels like a step backward. We have such deep, relatable, sad villains in Elidibus and Emmett Selk, and then it's just...
Here's the thing. I'm fairly certain they're not going to try to recapture Lightning in a Bottle with this next expansion. I don't think it's going to be... This Shadowbringers was about the villains. It was a villain fucking heavy story.
Shadowbringers was about the individual characters, and I think that's part of what made it great. Most of the others have been about a nation.
I think that this next one is going to be about a nation in that it's going to be about Garlemald.
Yeah.
And I think that the star character of the next expansion is going to be Gaius.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's going to be about him going home and deciding and having to confront what Garlemald actually is and what it should be.
I'll be interested to see...
And who he is.
The growth of the character throughout, because I do think that probably the ruby weapon, sapphire weapon, all that shit, I think it's going to have... I don't think it's going to be like Crystal Tower where it has like major implications. No. But I do think that he is going to... It's going to be kind of like Alize, where if you never did the Coil of Bahamut and Alize comes back, you're kind of like, I know you how.
Who are you?
I think that anybody who hasn't done the weapons trials and Gaius is going to come up and suddenly we're going to sort of be friends instead of just being like, the Black Wolf. Yeah. They're going to be
they had met sort of inside the patches before that, but even then.
You're still not really seeing, because like you're seeing that he had quote unquote kids and, you know, he's realizing how fucking awful Garlemald is doing some of the, like he already knew, like with the Black Rose, he was going like, guys, what the fuck? And now his kids, and he's like, guys, what the fuck?
And there's still no indication to exactly why the fuck they're doing that. Like they're totally like, yeah, we're gonna die. It's great.
It's weird. It definitely seems very like drink the Kool-Aid.
Yeah, I'm going, generally they haven't been like this.
Well, if you've done the sapphire weapon and they're not, I don't know, the whole thing with the one other one, I did think it was hilarious that they were like, damn it, they discovered the color coding. We must kill one that isn't blue.
Yeah, that was...
Because they came out and they were like, oh, the blue-haired one's talking about being the pilot, and everybody's like, oh, well, it's the sapphire weapon. And they're like, how did they know? And it's like, you gave them all colored hair.
To be fair, what was the one Aura girl? What color was she supposed to be?
Which one?
The one at the very end where she goes to meet Sweaty Man.
White. Her and...
She the diamond weapon, I guess?
Say her and the boy will probably co-pilot the diamond weapon.
I see. Okay.
And then I think the other one is, what is it? Ruby, Sapphire,
For
Emerald.
Emerald.
So Emerald Boy is dead, and now I guess Sapphire Boy will pilot the Emerald weapon.
Sure.
I think part of the reason they kind of won off. I did figure out why I hadn't thought about it, because I was always like, why did we not get to actually fight the Sapphire weapon? But because there's always only 3.
Yeah.
And I also don't think that this Sapphire weapon had a model in 7.
It did.
But I don't think you actually fought it.
No, Shinra shoots it with a big gun. They actually kind of make fun of that inside this one.
Oh,
you talk to his one elf buddy, and he was like, I don't know why we bothered to fight it with the Gundam.
Couldn't we just shoot it with a big laser?
Gun? And it's like, I see what you did there. But yeah, I know that it's been saying that for expansions upon expansions now, but I really do think the next expansion is going to be Garlemald, and it's going to be about Gaius. Mm-hmm. I think maybe Fordola might come back.
Oh, I
because
think so.
Her story needs a redemption arc.
Well, I think
she kind of had a little one, but
you see it a little bit more in, and I think it's the Summoner. I think it's the Summoner story, because I don't think it's the Scholar. The Scholar story is actually really the end of the Scholar story is actually really good, and I think it's the Summoner one that you go and actually talk to Fordola again a little bit. It's interesting. I don't really remember too much about it. I was fairly underwhelmed by most of the
job quests,
job ending story. The class ones were, honestly, I wasn't underwhelmed by the class quests. I was underwhelmed by the culmination of all of them.
Right. Oh yeah, we didn't talk about those, did we?
No, we didn't. The healer one was far and away the best one to me, followed shortly by the tank one.
They were all fine.
The healer one was really good. I'm sorry, it was.
It was. Of all of them, I think it was the best one. I don't think any of them were great, but I think that was probably the best one.
I really liked the healer one. I'll be honest, I know you said you, I guess, called it really early, but I had no idea that Geote was going to be a girl.
Yeah, I don't know why. It was just something that I thought of.
I didn't.
I'm not going like, ha ha ha, I knew I had secret knowledge.
Well, I wasn't like, oh my god, when they revealed it, but I was like, oh. Well, shit, you're a girl. That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And then I love that she fucking just sucker punches the guy in Hero's Gauntlet.
Yeah.
Just does the monk LB and punches the shit. Like, I've got a hammer, but fucking knuckle sandwich, bitch.
That was pretty good. That was a great part of Hero's Gauntlet, where all the different people from all the different areas that you've met. They didn't do anything with Ronka, did they?
Somebody might have been there.
Was there anything inside the Rahi place? Lahi?
It didn't fall in line, because you notice we didn't go to Kaluja either.
Right, yeah. But whatever.
Because I think, Amarang connects to Lakeland.
Yeah.
And so it made sense for you to go.
It was this little gauntlet of all the most of the different people you met. You even got help from some of the bosses, like the Frogman turning people into frogs. That was pretty cool. You had your class people helping kick some ass. I guess they all would have been there if you hadn't completed them all anyway. I
don't know. I honestly don't. Well, I guess they all would have been there, but I don't know if it would have meant much to you.
Right. You'd have been like, oh, there's some other people. I'm actually surprised Silva didn't show up in some way.
Who?
Silva, the elf lady.
Oh, I got the impression that she's not very actually physically strong anymore.
Yeah. But I don't know, maybe she comes out and she has some darkness power. She could have been the one to open the gate instead of Geote fucking punching a bitch. Although that was good.
I don't... Like I said, I think that was one of the weaker points.
Something I do got to do is I need to go back to the first and talk to some of those people, because I imagine they have something different to say now.
Oh, yeah, they might. Have you gone to the pendants?
No. Oh, the birds there. Yeah.
Oh, have you shown Graha his little mini?
Yeah, that was weird.
It was funny.
He was like, I'm very embarrassed. ultimately, I think we're kind of at the end here. I think we're going to Garlemald. I think that Xenos is going to be like, it seems like he's going to do something to fuck up somewhere. I feel like we gotta go to Charlian at some point because they've name dropped that place since 2.0.
I'll be very curious to see, and they definitely were very ominous with Graha talking about how the end of this star, or the end of this story for this star.
I imagine that my prediction is that it's going to be the end of the story in Eorzea. And then you're going to be going off to the different shards for different things.
That's definitely possible, because, that's another person that I need to go talk to. And honestly, I should have been talking to him all this time. The little boy from the 13th.
I've heard he's got actually something different to say because of Elidibus.
He has a lot of different things to say throughout all the different, he gets a lot of flavor text. And so I think, I think it would be interesting to have us go to some of the different shards.
Because I think once you defeat Garlemald, you kind of, what is there left in Eorzea?
Yeah, because the reason that the Ascians can sow so much chaos is because they can pit the two against each other. They already had this thing that they could latch onto and be like, ha ha ha, let's build out. Emmett Selk did all this job building this empire force that we could use to grow the darkness and whatever. But if you then have everyone working together, it's like, well, fuck. You took that away. I guess we can try to use the beast tribes, but...
Even then, there's a limited amount of things we could do.
Yeah.
But on these other shards, who knows what's left?
Right. I do know that they had said we are approaching the end of the Hydaelyn and Zodiarch.
I think you can wrap it up inside... Okay. I think you gotta have one inside Garlemald, and I think you gotta have one on the moon. Well, maybe that can be your last thing, is the moon.
Well, you know what was interesting?
Because
was Elidibus that we saw on the moon. Why was he on the moon? Why were you up there, Ellie?
I honestly, man, they gotta go to the moon at some point. There's gotta be a dungeon on the moon or some shit. We gotta fly a whale up there, and we gotta fight some shit.
I definitely thought we were going to the moon, especially, too, I made a joke at the back at the beginning of Shadowbringers. You talk to somebody in the library and they talk about saying like, oh, I found this book that talks about, taking a fantastic machine into space, even the moon. And I posted on Tumblr and I was like, I'm calling it now, we're going to the moon. And then we saw Elidibus on the moon and I was like, and then we didn't go to the moon and I'm like, what?
There's gotta be something on the moon. Whether I don't think it can probably be a whole expansion.
I guess it could just be a nod to 4 because there's been a lot of one whatever, but people have been saying especially 4 and 5 have been very prevalent. So somebody pointed out, and I didn't notice it myself, and I have to go back and look, but someone pointed out that it looked like that one of the shadows behind Elidibus when he summons is Cecil, because they were like, oh, that's Cecil's armor as a Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I now need to go pay a lot of attention.
I think next expansion is Garlemald. I think
feel like they're nodding at Chemist with the whole apothecary thing.
Maybe Necromancer, because they always do 2. They always do 2. And I still like my idea of Judge.
I think they'll have a hard time not making Necro a healer, though.
I
guess it could work, though. I guess it could work, though, with the raising thing. You raise, they could also raise kind of like Summoner raises, but maybe it has some sort of detriment or something for a little bit.
I don't know. Those might all be red herrings. I've told you before, I think that they should make a Judge class and use the maiming gear from the Dragoon and make them a melee DPS.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we'll get any more melee DPS.
Well, what the fuck? I mean, Judge, they use
I'm just trying to think about it. We've got Samurai, Ninja, Monk. Is that the only 3? I feel like there's one more. I guess that's it. Oh, well, Dragoon, 4.
Right, yeah.
And then for Magic, we have
Red
Summoner,
Mage, Black
Mage,
Mage,
and Black Mage.
Yeah.
And then for Ranged, we have Bard, Machinist, and Dancer.
Mm-hmm.
So Melee already has 4.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to make that 5 and unbalance it that way.
I mean, but there's 4 tanks.
I know.
There needs
I
to be,
do think
basically
they're
they need
gonna
one healer, and that's it. But I don't know if you can sell an expansion with one healer.
Unfortunately, I think what's going to happen is we'll probably end up with 2 DPS next time. and we won't get it. We still won't get another healer. They have a very hard time figuring out what to do with the healers. And that's why according to them, that's why we didn't get a healer this expansion, because they wanted to focus on fixing the healers that they had.
Well, they didn't do it.
No. Well, there are certain things that are better, and there are certain things that aren't. I know there are a lot of people who are like, oh my gosh, Astro is so much better from the, they said Shadowbringers fucked it up at the beginning, and now it's way better than it was. But there's a lot of people who are very attached to the old way that it played.
Sure.
Myself included. I do think that any class, the more actions you get and everything, the more complex it becomes. But Astro has just become a little too complex for me.
Yeah.
It's got too much involved. For me personally, if I can't have all my buttons on 3 bars, I'm not playing it. The only ones that I sort of will let that go with is the tank thing, because...
I can do tank on 3 bars.
I like having gaps between certain things.
So do I.
Well, you have shortcuts and stuff. I click everything. I click. Besides, I do 1 through 5 on my keyboard, and then I click. And then I have certain ones bound to my mouse buttons.
I do 1, 2, 3, 4, shift 1, 2, 3, 4, shift alt 1, 2, 3, 4, alt 1, 2, 3, 4.
Good for you.
I'm crazy.
Yes, you are.
Look, Shadowbringers is
phenomenal.
Freaking amazing. It was, and continues to be, one of the best Final Fantasy games, period. They've just gotten done doing a complete rehaul. Well, complete rehaul might be a bit overselling it. A significant cutting of A Realm Reborn and the patches that come after. They shortened a lot of the quests, where before I think you had to get like 10 squirrel pelts or some shit. Now you got to get 3.
I think they've also just removed a lot of those quests. Somebody was showing a graphic showing like how many quests they used to have and then how many there are now, and it's been significantly reduced.
It is easier than ever to get into Final Fantasy XIV. There was when I was doing my push through to max level, there were a lot of points where it's like, oh fuck, I gotta go do dungeons, I gotta grind, I gotta go do something to try to get up to the next level so that I can continue on the main quest.
Yeah.
They don't want that anymore. So
they really don't.
You make enough XP during all your quests that you don't have to do the grinding shit. It's the best time ever to get into 14 and 14 is arguably one of the best Final Fantasy games. Oh god, yes. Especially Shadowbringers. A Realm Reborn is still a bit of a slog. Even before the patches, the 2.1 or 2.2, whatever, trying to get from the end of it to the beginning of Heaven's Ward. It's even before that, it's a little bit like, oh, this is kind of boring. If you play in English, the voice acting in 2.0 is pretty rough. Yeah. Some are not as bad as others, but I mean, it's definitely grown a lot. But you can switch to Japanese, and the Japanese voice actors pretty much say exactly the same all the way until, or they're exactly the same. Shit, you can switch to fucking French, German. They have a lot of voices. But typically when it comes to anime, it's either English or Japanese. Oh, yeah. I like the dub. I think the dub's great. I like it fine. Yeah, one of the biggest problems I had, I recently played Breath of the Wild, and I hated the English voice actors. They're awful. Fight me. So I switched to Japanese. But in certain fights, when you're fighting like the divine beasts, when you're trying to get into them, the characters that you're hang out with will just shout out things as you're fighting, and you can't understand them. I have no fucking clue what they were saying. Not a damn thing. All right. And so that was kind of a shame. That's not really a problem in Final Fantasy because everything is turned into text. So that's not, I don't think, too huge of a problem, but it is something to possibly be aware of. Yeah. Well, Hallie, I very much enjoyed this conversation about Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. Woo. We will continue on our quest to play every Final Fantasy on this channel for our fan. It's still us that's just subscribed, right? It's just us two. We are the biggest fans of ourselves. Thanks very much, y'all. Talk to you later. Bye.